Hey everybody, welcome once again to the Football Fandemic, where there are two of us today to start out, and we're going to be talking about 4 in, 4 out. Which teams nobody expects might make the playoffs, and which ones everybody expects might not. That and more here on the Football Fandemic right now. Josh, now that I've made that comment about how every time I finish the intro, I take a drink of coffee, as I'm taking it every time, I'm very self-conscious, but I did it again.
It's just like a tick of some sort, you know. I do the same thing whenever I'm done talking. I have to rehydrate myself, whether it's with the Diet Coke or a coffee.
Yeah, and I'd have people who'd say, does a coffee really rehydrate you? But I'm going to say yes. I still am of the opinion that it's mostly water, even though there's that caffeine that's going to flush
That's true.
a lot out. So I told Josh just before we started, I made 2 cups today. So this one's sitting in store ready for when this one is done. And it's going to happen because this one's almost done. So you'll get to watch that. Those of you on YouTube know that it's happening. We may have Brandon join us a little later today. We don't know. He's unsure of his schedule and if he'll be able to get in. But we got the two of us that are...
Yes, sir.
Really the important.
It's going to be a fun one. It is it is cold weather down here in Arizona, by the way. We're at 70 degrees is the high, so we're
you said coat. I thought you said colt. I'm like, what's cold weather? I'm in.
No, I mean it is 70 degrees is our high, so we are all in our winter coats. And I feel like my Minnesota blood, as I've lived down here in Arizona for the past 6 years, has been slowly dried up and it's slowly been replaced by the Arizonan, because I now get cold in this sort of weather. My hands are freezing. I remember in the winter my hands would it'd be a tough time to get them moving. It's like you're a robot that its oil isn't there, so it's just stuck. That's what it was in the winter in -10 in Minnesota. That happens now in 65 degree weather here.
That's
so it's
crazy.
I'm transforming, and I don't know if I like it.
When it's 65 to 70, that's like peak. That's my peak time. I love that time. Well, actually 63 to 70. That's the beauty right there in those 60s, maybe the low 70s up to 72. You start getting any higher than that and I'm hot. So it's funny that you're like, it's 70, it's getting to be coat weather.
Yeah, I used to laugh at those people that would say that. Yeah. I used to laugh at the Floridians and the Arizonans and the Californians, but now, unfortunately, I am in that.
Even us in Illinois didn't have it as cold as Minnesota.
That's true. Yeah. That's true. You think I'd be prepared, but alas, that is not the case.
It changes things. It does. Well, we're going to start off with a little bit of, as always, our news, anything that is going on around the league, and we don't really have a whole lot here today. I have one. As a Colts fan, Monday, Shane Steichen said Joe Flacco is our quarterback going forward. We're sticking with him. Was it Tuesday or was it Wednesday? I can't remember now.
I think it was yesterday is when they made the official decision. So he had a good 48 hours to think about it.
Out comes the news. Anthony Richardson is starting for the rest of the year. And then Shane Steichen had to come and have a 40-some minute press conference where he just said over and over and over again.
Yep.
It's we just we're going through the process. The process was going. Now we feel like he's back and it's good. Process. Did I mention process? He's back. We're glad. We have all the confidence in the world in him. Yeah, a lot of buzzwords, and it was just over and over because they kept asking questions from a little different angle, and he just kept going same thing, same way. I truly. I think when you were talking earlier about how mentally he needed to step back and he needed to learn some stuff, and I think Brandon was in on this too. He needed to learn some fundamental stuff. He needed to get some mechanics down. It sounds like he needed to get some kind of professionalism and attention to detail and work ethic, which was a little surprising to me. I didn't realize that was the case. But 2 weeks is such an odd timetable in my mind. If they were going to do that, they were going to hold, him out for, 3 or 4 weeks and then bring him back as you're heading into the last. So this was a little earlier than I expected. But of course, Joe Flacco looked horrible. I think there was a little part of it too, where they were thinking, okay, if we can get AR's kind of, work ethic and head right, and Joe Flacco can win us a few games, we'll still be in contention. I think that had to be part of their thoughts, but that did not work out. If anything, we're worse off than we would have been with Anthony Richardson in there. And there's still a chance that we'll make the playoffs, but it's much, much less likely. I think somebody put up the chances of people making the Super Bowl, which granted, I don't think our chance of making the Super Bowl is existent, but we were at 0.2%, which is something. But when it comes to just getting in the playoffs, there's a little greater chance than 0.2, but it is very muddy, and it very much depends on other teams tripping up and us playing great. And that's never a good place to be. So we've dug ourselves a bit of a hole to get out of, but Anthony Richardson's back. And so we'll see how that goes. Do I think he got it all squared away, that his mentality and his mechanics are now great? No, he's still a project, but they're doing what they need to do with a project. And that is, develop. And so I don't think Shane Steichen necessarily had all of the call in this. I mean, the fact that Monday he was like, Joe's our starter, and then 2 days later he's like, AR's our starter, that sounds very much like somebody very high up with maybe billions of dollars said, we need to start Anthony Richardson.
Yeah.
And so I think Anthony Richardson's starting now. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, like you said, 2 weeks in the lab is not like a long time to get yourself fixed. That's 2 weeks of practice. So I don't know. I'm interested to see how he looks coming out of the little 2-week reprieve that he had. And perhaps one of the reasons that they decided Flacco for that 2-week span is because you didn't want to throw Anthony Richardson with the way he was playing after the Texans and Dolphins game. You didn't want to throw him to the Wolves against the Vikings and Bills, who both have very good defenses. Now the Jets defense has been up and down. Like on paper, they should be good, but they just haven't been. And they especially haven't been against the run. So I think that can be a real confidence builder for Anthony Richardson if we run a lot of zone reads between Taylor and him. The teams, the Bills and Vikings were able to just zero in on Jonathan Taylor because they knew more often than not Joe Flacco was not going to beat them with their arm. Now, though, and you had mentioned that Anthony Richardson adds another dynamic to this running game. You put him in one of the best running backs in the league together in the same backfield against a team that has not done a great job as of late stopping the run. You're giving yourselves a really good shot of winning that game. The theory of, we don't want to throw him to the Wolves loses a little bit of its credibility when you look at the next game, which is against the Detroit Lions. So that's going to be a real tough test, but you get the confidence builder against the Jets, and maybe you're able to pull off the upset, and then the schedule gets at least a little bit easier. The Broncos are going to be the only team that is above 500 that they will face after that Lions game the rest of the way. So I think that should bode well for Anthony Richardson, but I'm not sure, like you mentioned, all of those mechanical things would have been fixed in 2 weeks. But also the reasoning that they put Flacco in, that at least they gave publicly, was because they thought they gave him the better chance to win at that moment. And these 2 weeks have shown that that is not the case. It's kind of been up in the air no matter who's been back there. But again, if Richardson's mechanics are fixed or at least a little bit better, he becomes a lot more dangerous of a quarterback. And I'm interested. And Shane Steichen's a good play caller, so I'm going to be really interested to see if he's able to get some of those layups that he's been missing, and pair that with his very good deep down the field game.
And just watching Anthony Richardson when he talked, and Shane Steichen and the stuff he said, and the other players, I really get a sense that it wasn't just the mechanics. That was part of it. He does need to get better at those layups, but I really think it was the so he's been handed kind of everything, right? He's a humble guy. I've always thought he was very humble, had humility, but he played 13 games in college and then was drafted number 4 overall and kind of given the keys to a franchise. You're the guy, coming in. So that's not really kind of being shown. You really have to work hard. And you heard the comment, this is easier than college. NFL is easier than college. when he said that, that was the first little flag that kind of came up. I'm like, whoa, you don't say that. Even if you think that, you don't say that. But like, do you really even think that? And then of course he had some really bad games. And then when he was interviewed coming back, the first thing he said was, yeah, it kind of opened my eyes to the way I have to prepare, the things I have to do. I have to take a responsibility. And like Kenny Moore? Kenny Moore came on and had some really negative things to say about like everybody's not preparing. The things we're doing in practice are not translating to the game because people aren't taking it serious. And I think Anthony Richardson might have been part of that. And more than anything, this was probably just like hey, this can be taken away from you. You're going to sit for 2 weeks, game and a half, whatever it is. And just be able to at least feel the sting once that maybe it's not just going to be yours. Of course, then Joe Flacco played horribly. I think if Joe Flacco would have played great, it would have even given him more of a sense of, I need to get in there and like work hard, make sure I've got the details in place, I's dotted, T's crossed. When I go into this, I know everything that's going on and I've practiced hard, because I think he was relying a lot on athletic ability, which he has a lot of. But I think we'll see if he can get that discipline down. Maybe that'll help those mechanics more. Again, is it going to change everything in 2 weeks? No, but if it can help a little bit, and more importantly, if it can help his mindset to realize, okay, I've got to take this seriously or I'm going to be gone. And he heard enough fans, hopefully, well, I don't know. I'm always mixed on whether I want my players listening to, social media, because social media is a mess of people who are, when you're doing the best, they're like, fire him, he's horrible, I hate him, so, but he's had to have heard, and now from players and coaches as well as fans, this is the guy. Is this the guy? And enough people have said, if he doesn't play good next year, at least, put him in now, let him play. If he doesn't play good this year, at least we'll know what we've got to draft. And so for sure. Hopefully he's hearing that and saying, okay, I've got to work, and we'll see. As far as playoffs, we can talk about that a little bit, because we're going to have a little fun game called 4 in, 4 out. Maybe they'll show up in there, at least in somebody here's opinion. Yeah. So,
and to that point, like the range of like what will Anthony Richardson become is very wide. Like if he doesn't respond to that and doesn't prepare and has been ill prepared, like then he's a guy with all the talent, with all the arm talent, with all the athletic ability that who else was like that we know. Jamarcus Russell was a guy.
Russell, exactly who I was thinking of.
So he's kind of the cautionary tale there. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, a guy that really struggled with accuracy but had a big arm, very athletic, and is now an all-pro player is Josh Allen. So, and Anthony Richardson can be a faster version of Josh Allen, which is scary to think about. But that work needs to come, and it all depends on the guy's mentality. Like to this day, Jamarcus Russell, I saw on a podcast a couple of weeks ago, he's still not like taking accountability for his role in his career failures. He said, "Oh no, I prepared enough, but football wasn't my whole like wasn't taking accountability." So it's not something that you can just look at these tales of past failures and use that to motivate you. You have to have that inner motivation on your own and that inner accountability. And I think I hope that is something that Anthony Richardson has, because he can be one of the league's most dynamic players if he does.
Yeah, I really hope to see it. When we drafted him, that was my thought. Man, there's so much potential if he can just make it happen, if he can like get in there and work hard. And it's like you said, I love that Josh Allen and Jamarcus Russell polarity. Somebody needs to set that in front of him and say, which one are you going to choose? Because it's your choice, and let him go from there. Other news, Bears offensive coordinator out, right? Didn't see it coming. I didn't, but I also don't really watch the Bears all that closely. Did you see this coming at all?
I don't know if I like mid-season firings can kind of just be kind of like a crapshoot. Some teams will just like fire guys willy-nilly. I don't know if I saw it coming, but I think a lot of Bears fans wanted it to come. And it's kind of the same situation with what happened with the Anthony Richardson starting. The news of that, Matt Eberflus on Monday said, Shane Waldron is our guy, and we're going to move forward with him. And then on Tuesday, he says, actually, no, we are firing Shane Waldron. It's the best step for the organization. And then he has to field a bunch of questions about, why did you tell us one thing on Monday and one thing on Tuesday? And the answer is that coaches lie all the time. So now it's going to be Thomas Brown, who he has spent 1 year as an offensive coordinator before. It was with the Carolina Panthers last year with Bryce Young. Frank Reich called the offense for the first 6 games of that season, and then it was Thomas Brown who took over the play calling duties from there, both before Reich was fired and after Reich was fired. I think he called the plays for the rest of the season. So not an excellent track record if you're just looking at that. However, I remember when the Vikings hired Kevin O'Connell to be their head coach back in 2022, before the 2022 season. As they were filling out assistants and looking at guys at possible, offensive coordinator, pass game coordinator, run game coordinator, a guy that was consistently brought up because he was under Sean McVay's staff and along with Kevin O'Connell was Thomas Brown. And it was the first time I had ever heard his name. And it was kind of like, oh, he is a guy that can be like an offensive guru, and he learns a lot. He listens a lot, and then he knows how to put that stuff into practice. And I was really excited because I thought, oh, well, he's going to go with Kevin O'Connell, and we're going to get him, and we're going to have O'Connell, who's one offensive genius, and then Thomas Brown, who is another offensive genius. O'Connell can kind of give the play calling to him, and it was exciting. That ended up not happening. Thomas Brown didn't come to the Vikings. I think he stayed with the Rams for another season before going over to the Panthers. And then after a rough season there, in which the coach got fired, spent some time here with the Bears, and now he's going to be back in an offensive coordinator role in a little bit better of a situation than he was in Carolina. The offensive line situation might not be any better. It's probably about the same as it was with the Panthers last year, but he's got better wide receivers. He's got with DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, they've got Cole Kmet as the tight end. He's got a lot to work with, and he's got a good running back too, in DeAndre Swift, and Roschon Johnson is a good guy to spell that. So Caleb Williams yesterday during his press conference said, I think we're going to have a lot more simpler of an offense for me to start things out. And I'm going to have a lot more layups that I have the opportunity to hit. So I want to see that. I want to see that in this game against the Packers, is design some of these plays. That's when Jordan Love started to become good. His first half of the season last year with the Packers, it was kind of up and down. We were still kind of debating, is this guy going to be the next Aaron Rodgers, the next Brett Favre? And the Packers were 3-6, and it looked like it might have been the wrong decision to draft Jordan Love back in 2020. Ended up not being the case because they started to design more layups with LaFleur, more just open shots that Love could hit easily. And then we saw that arm talent really start to explode from Jordan Love, and he became an elite quarterback during that back half of the season. So again, another confidence builder, hopefully, for Caleb Williams. But in reality, we don't really know Thomas Brown's track record outside of the fact that people in every building that he's worked in has said that this guy is one of the next up and coming young guys for offensive coordinators. So it'll be a fun game against the Packers. I don't know if they win that game, but hopefully their offense can get back on track, because they have not scored a touchdown in either of their last 2 games. 9 points against the Cardinals, and then 3 points last week against the Patriots.
Yeah. So, I mean, what will be interesting is if he gets in there and does a good job, and then they still hate Eberflus and get rid of him, he may even put himself in a place to become the interim. Maybe it's always hard to go from interim to head coach and stay there. So I don't know if that's a great place to be or not, but he's there. The offensive coordinator switch. Other than that, I think, news-wise, I heard Aaron Rodgers saying something on the Pat McAfee show about how, players these days just put their headphones on and play video games. Not like it was back in my day. He was sounding very grandpa. Back in my day.
Oh, man. Him and
Interesting to.
Tom Brady have kind of had that like Brady's been saying like, oh, everyone's been soft in the NFL now. When I was playing, he was the guy that got the most benefit of the roughing the passer penalty throughout his entire career. So, and I get that's not his decision to call those flags, but he was definitely protected by the referees throughout his career when he was playing.
Oh yeah, that's how the thing with Aaron Rodgers started. Was he's like, yeah, we used to get together like in March is when we would get together for practice and stuff. Now we don't get together until 6 weeks later. So I forget what he said, but basically complaining about how the new bargaining agreements limit the amount of time people can practice and have practice with pads and all this, and it's that whole we're all soft, and so obviously we're not good now. Well, other teams are good now. Granted, he's got to get familiar with people, but
the teams can't run the practices. But hey, Aaron Rodgers can invite his guys out to the darkness retreat, and they can spend some time, throwing the football around in the tent or whatever it is that they go into. Kind of get on the same mind level.
That's funny because in my mind, I pictured it was a cave, total darkness. I thought that'd be cool is if you could go into a cave in total darkness and get good with the ball. All of them are like bats. They just have sonar.
That's how you get like on the same page with the guy. You know exactly where the football is going to be because you couldn't see it at all in the darkness retreat. So that's what he needs to do this offseason if he wants to put his money where his mouth is.
So we too here have figured out the best training regimen for really getting your quarterbacks and receivers on the same page. Has to do with a cave and darkness. Make it happen. That's all the news I really had in front of me here. There probably is something I'm forgetting, but we're going to go on and kind of look at the games that happened this last week. Just kind of talk about any that were exciting and any that were really particularly good, and if any were particularly bad. Sometimes that's fun to talk about too. But what games from this past week really had you excited? I'll tell you, I started by watching a game where the quarterback dropped back and we were all excited, and on the very first play of the game, it was a pick six. Can you guess that game?
I know which one you're talking about there. Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah.
It was
did not.
That game was closer when I watched it back. It was closer than the final score indicated. Yeah. Like there was a chance there when the Colts had the lead. The Bills fumbled a kickoff, and Indianapolis was ever so close to recovering that and getting the ball back at like the 20-yard line, and could have given themselves a 2-possession lead. But it ended up the Bills kind of swing that, and right before halftime they go down the field and score, and that kind of swung the game a little bit more towards their favor at that point and gave them a lot of momentum.
Yeah, I will say in that game, the one silver lining that happened, the one thing that was really good was I saw A.D. Mitchell catch some balls. Like he had what people were calling a breakout game, which means he caught balls that you should catch normally thrown to you. It was nothing spectacular. It was not like he had over 100 yards and a touchdown or anything like that. But I think he had like 70 some yards. I don't even know. I could look it up. But
he was getting targets. Like he was I think, targets. Probably the most targeted guy that they threw to in that game.
Right. And so we figured out what the recipe is to have a breakout week as A.D. Mitchell, and that is to have Michael Pittman hurt. That's the plan. What do? Get Michael Pittman out of there. But no, he did catch some, which in the past he's had a lot of these where it's like there, and either he just doesn't hustle it quite enough to get to it, or it hits him in the hands, or it kind of is just a little bit behind him, but he can't adjust and make that. And whatever the case has been, I've been a bit disappointed in what he's shown us so far, but I know he has potential. So I'm hoping, and I know wide receivers, usually it's the third year they really break out, right? We were spoiled with Josh Downs last year. He comes in and breaks the rookie record with 60 some, I forget what it was, completions. But I do like Josh Downs. I feel like he was very highly targeted, and everybody knew he was going to be the number one target. So getting A.D. Mitchell in there is good. Michael Pittman Jr. is one of those that he got paid this year, and there's some times where he goes up for incredibly hard catches with two people on either side of him, and he comes down with it. But it seems like that's the only kind of catch he makes, and it's occasionally. Maybe it's because everybody just double teams him. But I've been a little concerned about where he's at And if he's one of those who maybe isn't putting in the full 110% all the time, because I haven't seen the hustle, and again, I'm not watching him on every play because it hasn't been going to him that often. He hasn't been targeted that often. So anyway, the one good part, AD Mitchell, he made a showing. I saw his name, heard his name, saw him like make some catches, and I'm like, okay, keep that going when we get other people back, and that'll be good. But otherwise, I wasn't. It's really hard to continue to look like you're going to win when you keep turning the ball over. Was it 3 interceptions? Oh, so bad.
Bad. And 2 of them came in that first quarter. And I think another positive from the Colts perspective could be Jonathan Taylor in that first half was explosive. He was dynamic. He was running the football, even though everybody knew that he was going to get the ball a ton. I think he went over 100 yards in the first half. And then I feel like when I was watching it back, like I didn't see him as active in the second half, like in the run game. I feel like they didn't run the ball as much in the second half. And it was a close game at halftime. And maybe that was kind of to the detriment of Indianapolis' offense. Is like Joe Flacco kind of got, I mean, he was never really in a rhythm in that game, but once the run game got going, he wasn't turning the ball over as much. And then it seemed like to me that they just weren't running the ball as much in the third and fourth quarters.
This is something that I've noticed with him. So last year, like when Shane Steichen was hired, I was super excited. I like Shane Steichen. I like his mentality. I like where he came from. And we were all comparing, Jalen Hurts, he did this. He's kind of a similar sort of quarterback. Look what he's going to do. And I realized, Anthony Richardson is not Jalen Hurts. But last year, I feel like Shane Steichen called some very creative plays, a lot of creative plays. This year, I have been less enthused with the play calling, particularly what you just said, how it goes from first half to second half. It seems like we give up on the run too early. I feel like you should never give up on the run. I know sometimes when you get really behind, you have to throw the ball because you don't want to waste time. You can't do it all on the ground. So you got to get some fast strikes. And I think, we got a little bit enamored with some of those, 60-yard bombs that both AR and Joe Flacco threw, to Alec Pierce always down there. And we got, all we need is one of those and we're back in it. And so we would keep trying that. And we kind of got away from running it all. I would like to see a more balanced continuation of the run into the second half, because I do think when Jonathan Taylor is a threat, everything else is easier. And
it definitely is. And I now remember when I was watching, it was before the first half had ended. They said Jonathan Taylor is at 101 rushing yards. I think there's like 3 minutes left to go in the first half. He finished with 114. So that means at most he got 13 rushing yards in the second half. And I don't know. I don't know if that was I don't remember if that was because of lack of handoffs or if because it's the Bills just stifled up against the run. But whatever it was, he was not as much of a factor in the third and fourth quarters. I will say the Colts receiving core is impressive. I don't know if they have like a true number one guy, but like if you get Pittman, Pierce, Downs, and Mitchell all going, like those are a lot of weapons for Anthony Richardson to work with, especially considering the ground game that you should be able to have on a week in, week out basis. Those are all guys that can go and make plays, and they all do different things. Like AD Mitchell can run routes really well. Alec Pierce and Michael Pittman are big contested catch getters, and Pierce gets all the deep down the field stuff. And then Josh Downs just kind of, moves the chains all the time. So I think there definitely is a lot to like about this Colts offense once, if and when Anthony Richardson can really get rolling.
Yeah. I think one of the hardest things as a Colts fan is to see all of the talent we have and on paper, how good it looks, and continue to underperform and just kind of sit in that mediocrity. That's at least the Colts forums that I'm on. That's the comment. It's like, what I hate is for years, we'll have like really good players and possibility, and somehow we just never take advantage of it, or put it all together. And I realize it all has to come together from everybody's perspective. The coach has to do it. The quarterback has to be, on point. The receivers and the running back, they have to be going. But they just, so much talent in all those positions. You just think we could get it put together. So here's to hoping. Here's to hoping.
Yeah.
What are the games? I spent a lot of time on Buffalo Indy for a game that was like not that exciting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Steelers Commanders was really good. You had Jaden Daniels making plays, Russell Wilson making plays. And it ends with that Mike Williams touchdown. He comes in his first game, he gets the game-winning touchdown. It's 3rd and 9, and it is one of those trademark Russell Wilson, just like high arcing shots that it just allows Mike Williams to go. He didn't have a ton of separation, but because like the ball on its like vertical downward trajectory was almost straight down, there was nothing the defender could do, and Mike Williams was able to make the catch for the touchdown. And then some like controversy a little bit on a 4th down play for the Washington Commanders on the ensuing drive, where it looked like Zach Ertz caught the ball at the line to gain, at least on the broadcast. And, they'll always say, oh, the line is unofficial.
Even when his knee touched and he twisted, it looked like he got there, but
because he did for a second, he did bring himself back a little bit. And that's when the forward progress, when it's you bringing yourself back, the forward progress doesn't apply. But like you said, when he twisted, it looked like he got the football perhaps back to that line to gain. It was kind of a weird angle too. So not really sure. And then Russell Wilson,
there was a pass interference that I also felt. I can't remember exactly what the play was now, but I remember it was before that catch that was so controversial. There was one that was a pretty hard looking pass interference that didn't get called. Maybe I can't remember. I'd have to go back and watch the game, but
yeah, I'm not sure either, but I do know that Russell Wilson had the veteran move of getting a guy to jump off sides. He got a rookie to jump off sides on 4th and 1 when everyone in the stadium knows you're not going to, like, you're up 1, you're at the 40-yard line. They're not going to snap the ball, because if they don't get it, it's 20 yards for Jaden Daniels to go in a minute and a half to win the game. So he gets Johnny Newton.
It was a bad jump off too.
It was bad. Yeah. He just like leaped forward. And I mean, oldest trick in the book, but it still sometimes gets some run and still sometimes works. But another good game, at least a decent game from Russell Wilson. Again, like, he's not doing anything like spectacular. He's just throwing it up to George Pickens and now Mike Williams, and have the willingness to do that, which is what we talked about, like Justin Fields in those tight windows. He didn't either. The windows were too tight for him because he had missed the read earlier and was a little bit too late, or just wasn't willing to try and make a mistake in that situation. Russell Wilson just kind of forces it into those windows and has that confidence to do that. And Pickens and Mike Williams just continue to let that confidence in them pay off by making big catches. Like George Pickens is, like, for me, quickly becoming one of the top receivers in the NFL, just with what he is able to do to get some of these footballs.
I'm going to go next to a game that you are going to sigh at, but I think you already know which one I'm talking about. Broncos Chiefs. Broncos, let's be real, should have won that game. They did everything they needed to do. How in the world did they block that punt? It was just a kick. It was a short kick. Everybody was expecting it. I watched, you know who Brandon Perna is? He's a guy. He's a big Broncos fan, does a podcast with the dude who's a big Green Bay fan, who was the fan of the year, went to all the stadiums in one year. Anyway, Brandon Perna, I was watching as a representative of that game. Every fan had to feel it. They're like, okay, we got this. Oh, I'm so nervous. I'm so nervous. Something's going to go wrong. No, we got this. No. When that was blocked, it was just the worst. And the worst part is, I hate that the Chiefs are 9-0 and just seem dominant, but they've been on the edge of being beat more than a couple times this year.
Yeah. It has been, like we said, like they're 9-0 in like a non-dominant fashion. So it's scary to think of if they do become dominant. I mean, Isaiah Pacheco is going to come back soon, and like Kareem Hunt is fine. Like he's been getting, he won't be explosive though. He'll get you like 4 yards like every single time, and that'll keep the offense moving. But it won't be anything that like looks pleasing to the eye. You know, it's not going to be these nice big runs. It's just going to be kind of like running into a small hole and then having a cloud of dust, the 3 yards in a cloud of dust. So maybe Pacheco makes them a little bit more explosive, and maybe Hopkins and Mahomes, that connection has looked good. That becomes an even more rhythmic connection as the season goes on. But yeah, I mean, you can credit the special teams because it looked like they saw the guy that had been the weak link in the line and in previous kicks. I don't know what they watched on film, but they sent like 4 guys directly at that one spot, and there were 4 guys coming through that gap to block that kick, and they just kind of overwhelmed them. But blocked kicks still are just so fluky that it just seems like everything is going the Chiefs' way right now. I will say Bo Nix on that drive did make a really, really good throw to get them into field position for that field goal, where it wasn't first read. It wasn't when he got out of the pocket, it wasn't vacating the pocket and like just continuing to backpedal. It was like maneuvering well, stepping up, and then firing on the run to an open receiver. So maybe he is starting to take those next steps forward. But there were still some misses that he had in that game as well. But yeah, another Chiefs win. So it just looks like they're a unstoppable force that you can slow down a little bit, but they'll keep on rolling.
Another team that everybody has high hopes for, the Baltimore versus Cincinnati game. It came down to 1 point. 1 point. Yeah. Bengals almost did it, but they didn't. And now all that will be remembered is Baltimore won another one. Bengals lost another one. Sad, but that's what you get.
I still think going for 2 on that last play was the right call for Cincinnati, because their defense was doing well early in the game, but in the last half of the game, it was I think the last 4 possessions for the Ravens were all touchdowns. So like they just weren't able to stop offenses anymore. They weren't going to be. They would have to rely on a coin toss in overtime to give themselves a chance to not let the Ravens offense touch the ball. So going for 2 and like just going for the win.
Yeah.
I think that's the right call. There were some flags that were potentially missed on that play, but alas, it doesn't go Joe Burrow and the Bengals' way. And like you said, yeah, the Ravens are on fire right now, and the Bengals, with the Broncos losing their last 2 games, have kind of really missed an opportunity to get themselves right in the thick of it for that wild card race.
Yeah, and it's totally their defense. Their offense, good. Defense, not good.
No, not at all.
Not at all. New England beat the Bears pretty handily, which is what caused the firing of an offensive coordinator. I think it was the tipping point, the straw that broke the camel's back. But New England and Drake May starting to come together a little bit. Now, it was the Bears. You know, I don't want to say, oh, you can't be excited at all, because the Bears aren't like a terrible team, as whatever Brandon says. They are still working through some stuff, but Drake May is playing pretty good.
Yeah, his best throw of the day didn't even end up counting. He like rolled out, and I think KJ Osborne, he threw a dart to him in the end zone, but Osborne had stepped out of bounds and couldn't be the first guy to touch it beforehand. He made the catch, but it was a flag for illegal touching. And then the Patriots defense really comes through, but I think that is more of saying something about the Bears offensive line, because the Patriots got 9 sacks, and the Patriots' biggest weakness all season has been their pass rush. And the Cardinals, who got a bunch of sacks on Caleb Williams the week before, their biggest problem on defense had been their pass rush, especially with Dennis Gardeck out for the season. So the Bears offensive line is going up against these teams that really struggle to rush the passer, and those teams are making it look easy to get to Caleb Williams. And some of those sacks were on Williams because he was holding on to the ball a little bit longer, but a lot of them weren't on Williams. So yet to be seen if the Patriots defense can continue that sort of momentum going forward. If so, great. I don't think so. But Drake May does look good, and I think there's a bright future for New England.
Now, Minnesota, Jacksonville is a much lower scoring game than I anticipated. I actually thought, if anything, it would be like two higher scoring offenses, but one, 12-7. What were your thoughts on that one? I know you're a Minnesota fan.
Yeah, that was a frustrating game to watch because the Minnesota Vikings controlled the off, like they did everything well except when they got into the red zone.
Mm-hmm.
They had the ball for 42 minutes, which is a season high
crazy.
of any team. Yeah. And the problem was that Sam Darnold kept turning the ball over on 3 interceptions that were all in the red zone or close to the red zone. The good news, I don't know if it's good news, is that it doesn't look like those were boneheaded decisions. They were just bad throws. So now we're worried about, like, first we're worried, okay, is his ability to read the field regressing? Now we have to worry about, is his ability, like the arm talent, which has always been like his calling card, that was always like, he can be a really good player because he's got really good arm talent. Well, that was not good on Sunday. Like his first interception was kind of a fluky one. It was Jefferson was kind of being held a little bit on a slant route. It was I wouldn't have called it, but like there was definitely some contact. It got batted up into the air and went to a defender. Second interception, him and Jefferson either weren't on the same page, or it was what I think a bad throw. It was kind of a scramble drill. Now, earlier on in the play, he did miss Aaron Jones on a check down, which would have gotten them a first down. But instead, he kind of vacates the pocket, scrambles up, and then Jefferson is in the end zone, and he's like coming down towards from the back of the end zone on an angle coming down towards the goal line, and he's open. There's nobody in the space there, so it was the right decision, but Darnold threw it behind him, so it was either, again, a bad throw, or he was expecting Jefferson to kind of stop and go for the ball at that point. And then the third interception, again, it would have been a touchdown with a good throw. He had both Addison running a shorter out route and then Jefferson running a sail route to the front pylon of the end zone. And there were 3 safeties or 3 defensive backs in the area. 2 of them squeezed onto Addison. They moved up. And then Jefferson had the outside leverage against the other safety. So if Sam Darnold throws it to where it's supposed to go, which is right on the pylon, that's going to be a touchdown. But he throws it again behind Jefferson, and it allows the safety to catch up and come and intercept that pass. So it was an ugly day throwing the football for Darnold. He did make some good plays and good reads throughout most of the game, and the saving grace for the Vikings was that they were going up against Mac Jones, who looked as bad as he has ever looked in his entire career. He had a tough game. He was getting sacked. It helped the Vikings got Blake Cashman, their middle linebacker, back. He had missed the last 3 games, and those were games in which the Vikings went 1-2 in. And had a big problem with stopping routes over the middle of the field because he wasn't there, and you had to deal with a young Ivan Pace and some other linebackers that weren't as good in getting depth when they're going into that zone coverage. Blake Cashman can get depth and doesn't bite on those play actions, so he was able to muddy the middle of the field a little bit more and make it hard for Mac Jones to throw it there. More often than not, Mac Jones went to the outside, and the Vikings cornerbacks were playing good man coverage. Like, the Vikings defensive backs have been up and down, but they can play man-to-man when you're not motioning anybody. And that's what the Rams and Lions did, was try to mess with the Vikings communication and get there whenever they saw the Vikings were playing man coverage, kind of move the guys around and then throw the Vikings off. Oh, am I supposed to be guarding this guy now, or am I supposed to be guarding this guy? And that split-second decision, that split-second hesitancy allowed the Rams and Lions to take advantage of the Vikings defense. Jaguars didn't ever motion anybody in the passing game, and then Mac Jones was just under duress as soon as he had the ball snapped. Another guy that had a good game, Jonathan Greenard, our edge rusher. He was his first game with no pressures on a quarterback, but he was just excellent against the run. Like he kept coming off blocks and getting into the backfield to stop both Travis Etienne and Tank Bigsby. So good game for the Vikings defense. Granted, they went up against Mac Jones. Bad game by the Vikings offense. The hopefulness is that the bad throws were fluky and that Darnold can continue to make some good decisions as he has been these last couple of weeks.
Yeah. When it was only 12-7 and you were against Mac Jones, that's not super comforting, because if anybody was a little better, yikes. The good thing, you said the one positive was that it didn't seem like he was making bad decisions, just bad throws. I think the other silver lining there is he was doing it in the red zone, which is, you would think that's not but at least it's not within his own 10-yard line and getting a pick six like Joe Flacco did.
Yeah.
Which would have changed the complexion of the game. So at least it was far enough that you never want to throw interceptions, and you hate being in the red zone and not getting any points at all. That's disheartening. Let's see. What other games were good this last week?
None of the afternoon games were any good.
None of the afternoon games.
49ers Buccaneers, the 49ers win that one 23-20. And there's just like a lot going on in that one. You had the Baker Mayfield stiff arming Nick Bosa as on a fourth down and then completing a pass. Like he's stiff arming him for like 10 yards, and somehow Bosa's not able to get to him. And like that's what you get from Baker Mayfield. So it's like he's been playing well, and hopefully we'll get Mike Evans back soon so that the Bucs can maybe get back on track. But that was a good game. The 49ers go down the field, however, and kick a field goal right at the end. A great drive by Brock Purdy, while Tom Brady watched on, and is the guy that is most known for getting teams into field goal range with like 40 seconds left to win the game. And then you had the moment where Deebo Samuel threw a punch at the long snapper after the kicker missed his third field goal of the game, which was interesting. I'm not sure. Like I was like, oh, have the snaps been really bad today? And when I watched back, like the snaps looked like they were fine. So I'm not sure why Deebo, even if they were bad, that's not an excuse to go and like punch your teammate. But
right.
Like you're trying to see like, why are you going after him of all people? So I'm not sure what happened there, but it did make for some interesting fodder to talk about in that game.
Yeah. Arizona beat New York Jets. A lot of people were like, oh, the Jets are now starting to surge. I remember thinking, are the Jets going to surge now? Are they getting it? I don't think they are. Arizona beat them. Arizona is in the lead in their division. I don't think they'll keep that. I think the 49ers are going to pass them. But Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr., getting a little together. I didn't really watch the game terribly deeply. So
Trey McBride was the big go-to guy too for them. And Kyler Murray set a franchise record that was previously set by Carson Palmer for most consecutive completions. So he threw 17 straight completions, and technically that streak is still ongoing because his last pass, like the last pass that he threw, was that 17th completion. But kind of just a play that was the microcosm of the Jets season so far. Is it was 3rd down and 7, and I think it was 7-3 at this point, and Kyler Murray dumps it off to Trey McBride, and McBride runs into Sauce Gardner. Sauce Gardner's like grabbing onto him, and Sauce Gardner goes for a ride on his back for the next 4 yards, and then Trey McBride hurdles a guy and gets the first down. And that's just kind of been the Jets season this year. It's like, oh, they got him right where they want him. They got him in 3rd down. All right, we're going to make the tackle.
They hit him early.
No, we're not. Everything's going wrong. And then the Cardinals ended up scoring on that drive. I think they scored on like their first 4 drives of the game, and like it was kind of close throughout the first half because Aaron Rodgers was keeping New York in it, but they weren't able to convert their drives into points, into touchdowns rather. So they kicked a couple of field goals early on to kind of stay with it, and then the Cardinals poured it on from there.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens with those Cardinals and with those 49ers and who ends up at the top. But Philadelphia and Dallas played. Philadelphia kicked Dallas down. We all expected it. Dak is out. They're not looking good. But it does bring up the question of who's going to end up in the NFC East at the top. Is it going to be Philadelphia or the Commanders? A little earlier in the year, I might have said the Commanders, but Philadelphia is coming back. They're getting weapons back. They're starting to look like, now again, this was against Dallas, which there was a time when we all thought, okay, maybe Dallas is going to be a little bit harder to beat this year, but boy, they haven't looked good at all this year. Detroit Houston was a good game. I'm sorry, did you want to say something about Philly Dallas?
Oh no, just the Cowboys got Micah Parsons. Their defense early on wasn't the issue. They were doing a pretty good job containing the Eagles, but when all your drives after that end in 3 and outs, it's going to be hard for them to keep that up throughout the course of the game.
Got to give your defense a rest sometimes.
Yeah.
What about Detroit Houston?
Yeah, this is like the game where you're like, okay, it's something we've said about the Chiefs for the last couple of years. It's like this team just is unbeatable. Like you get them a 23-7 lead. You have Jared Goff throwing 5 interceptions, and you're still not able to win that game. It's really frustrating if you're a fan of the NFC North, and you're wanting the Lions to lose so that you can have a better chance to win the division. I'm sure as a Colts fan, it was a very pleasing game to watch.
Very pleasing game to watch the end of.
Yeah.
It was a little hard earlier watching and being like, are they gonna lose to the Texans? Come on.
and CJ Stroud, like granted, Nico Collins still isn't back and might be back this week against the Cowboys, but like there's the play where he has Tank Dell wide open and he throws it he doesn't see it and he throws it way late, and that allows the the Lions to come up and get the interception.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was just like a whole mass of errors in that second half for Houston. They couldn't run the ball after running the ball all right in the first half, and then CJ Stroud, again, that interior pressure got to him, and he wasn't able to like perform as well as we expect him to perform. He was doing well early in the season, but these last like 3 or 4 games have kind of like brought CJ Stroud back down to earth a little bit. Mm-hmm. And he just has not been the same guy really since I feel like that Bills game that they won in like week 6 or week 7. It's kind of been a rough go of it for him.
And maybe having Nico Collins back will help, because I think he always looks at Nico first. And and if Nico is open, then that makes a big difference. But yeah, he has looked under duress, and like his decision making has been a little more frenetic. It's like he doesn't know where to go. And like you said, there's times when Tank Dell was open, mm-hmm. and he just didn't see it. And so good for us. With all that we have done that is so bad, the truth is we're still within shot. We can we could still get the AFC South, which is crazy, sure. Which is crazy to me. But let's hope that things move in that direction. But for you guys, it makes it harder because Detroit just lengthened their lead over everybody. Packers had a bye week. You guys won, but you were trying to make up some ground, and you couldn't do that because they just kept going. And so it's going to be hard to surpass the Detroit Lions this year, I think.
I think the Vikings technically control their own destiny. So, because if they win out, it would include a win against the Lions. So both of these teams technically control their own destiny for the NFC North. But obviously, winning out would be a tough feat for any team still at this point. But yeah, I don't. It just seems like the Lions can't be beat. I used to feel this way about like the early 2010s Green Bay Packers. It seemed like everything they did would find success. And even when they were down in games by 14, it was like, well, no, they have Aaron Rodgers and he's going to be like surgical on this next drive. And I mean, Jared Goff isn't Aaron Rodgers, but like this offense is that good. It seems as those early 2010s Packers offenses.
They find a way. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Then our last game of last week was Miami versus the Rams, and Miami once again didn't look good.
No, they ended up winning that game, but so I guess the positive for Miami is like their defense held, like bent but didn't break. They gave up 5 field goals to the Rams and never allowed them to get into the end zone. But the offense kind of took a step back, and it seems like the offense is just really only focused on the running back. So you're not getting explosive plays with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle anymore. And it just seems like if those guys are involved, it's because it's like a short pass that in those quick rhythmic type of passes that Tua is good at. But hey, if you're the Dolphins, you're
take the win.
You'll take it. Again, it could just be a little bit too late for them, though. It's obviously too late for the division, but too late for the wild card probably as well.
Well, let's move from that into our title segment here. 4 in, 4 out. This is one we came up with a long time ago. Just before we started this podcast, we realized this is something we want to do. But Josh, why don't you explain what it is, since it was kind of more your idea, and then we're going to do this together. Okay?
Yeah. So over the course of the season, we can kind of get lost in the moment, and when a team is in first place or in playoff contention in week 10, like pencil them in for a playoff spot. However, like historically, that is not the case. There was last year at this point 4 teams that were in playoff contention that ended up missing out of the playoffs entirely after week 10, and 4 teams that were out of playoff contention that ended up making it into the playoffs for the 2023 season. And I'll just run through them quickly. But after week 10 last year, the Jags led the AFC South at 6-3.
That was like mind blowing that they didn't even make the playoffs, and like that they had a chance to win the division with that last game still in play. But if either the Colts or the Texans won and they didn't, they were completely out, which is what happened. That was crazy.
AFC South, the Saints were leading the division at 5-5.
Oh yeah.
The Seahawks were in wild card position at 6-3, and the Vikings were in wild card position at 6-4. All of those teams ended up missing out on the playoffs, and the teams that replaced them, the wild card teams in the NFC, were the 3-6 Rams and the 3-6 Packers. The Buccaneers, they were only a half game behind the Saints, but they were 4-5 and ended up winning that division. And then the other one was the Bills, who were out of the playoff contention because they had a kind of rough start with one possession losses early in the year. They were 5-5 and ended up making it into the postseason. So if you're 3-6 here in November, you still have a shot, even with historical recency going back a year ago. So what we want to do is take 4 teams that are currently in playoff contention and say these are the teams that will not make the playoffs, even though they're in a good spot right now. And then we're going to bring in 4 other teams that are not in as good of a spot and give them a little bit of hope and something to look forward to throughout the rest of this NFL season. And if you're not one of those 4 teams that moves in, then you can probably just tune in next year. Sorry, Panthers fans.
Sorry.
But yeah, so that's what we're gonna do. Is
okay.
We're gonna
so let's look at it like this. I'll name the 7 teams that are right now in playoff contention, and we'll pick the 3 that we're like these are going to stay. And then we're going to like talk about like why those other 4 did not make it. Those are the 4 that are moving out. Because if you have 4 that you're moving out, that means of the 7.
So this is 4 for the not just for one conference. So there'll be 14 teams that are currently in, and 10 of them will make it. 4 of them will not.
Okay. Well, let's first remind us who right now is in contention. So obviously in the AFC, we've got the Chiefs, who have yet to be defeated, and the Bills, who are looking strong at an 8-2 record, right? So 9-0 for the Chiefs, 8-2 for the Bills. Steelers, 7-2 right now, are in the AFC North. They're above the Ravens because they haven't lost 3 games yet. Ravens at 7-3. We'll get to them in a second. In 4th place is the Texans, 6-4 in the AFC South. So that's our division winners at this time. Then you got the Ravens in the first wild card spot at 7-3. You got the Chargers at 6-3 in the 6th seed, and the Broncos in the 7th place at 5-5. That's who's in right now. Let's just, do you want to stay on the AFC side, or do you want to go ahead and also mention who's in the NFC side?
Well, yeah. So I was planning on taking 2 out from each. So I'm going to take out 2 from the AFC, and you can agree or disagree.
Okay.
I think one is going to be the Broncos that I'm taking out, and that obviously has to do with my disbelief in Bo Nix. The defense is good. They're 5-5 though, so they're only right now a game ahead of the Colts and Bengals, and just a game and a half ahead of the Dolphins. And even the Jets and Patriots are still 2 games back. So those are teams that are like still jockeying for position. As bad as the Jets and Patriots are record-wise at 3-7, they're still just 2 games out of potentially getting into the playoffs. The other team that I'm going to take out is from the AFC South, the Houston Texans. CJ Stroud is struggling mightily, and I don't know if Nico Collins is going to be able to help them moving forward. Anthony Richardson is coming back for the Colts. I have Kevin O'Connell has a ton of faith in Anthony Richardson. I don't know if you saw at the end of the Vikings-Colts game that he went up to Anthony Richardson and said, and talked to him as like, you're going to be a big star in this league. Like, keep fighting. Shane believes in you. These guys believe in you over here. Like, just keep holding on and keep working, and you're going to be, it'll all take care of itself. I believe in Kevin O'Connell. I believe in my preseason prediction, midseason prediction. The Indianapolis Colts just I guess technically 3 games back, but still with that easy part of the schedule after the Lions game, are going to make a run and dethrone the Houston Texans, who are struggling with CJ Stroud. Teams have figured out that offense, and I think it's going to be a rough road for the Texans ahead.
Okay, before you say who you're putting in, let me see if I agree with this. So you're taking out again Broncos.
Yep.
I think I agree with that one. And you're taking out the Texans completely. That's a tougher one for me, even though I would not be opposed. Because that would obviously, for me, mean the Colts win the AFC South and then no other representative came. That's where I'm having a harder time. No other representative from the AFC South, which means you think somebody in this is going to end up with more wins than the Texans, who already have 6. And I'm guessing I already know who you're putting in their place. I'm trying to figure out who you might be putting in the other place. I think you're
yeah, so I am going to go with...
I think you're going to say the Bengals are going to make it.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Bengals. I'm going to go with the Joe Burrow train. And I think the Dolphins still have an outside chance, but I'm going to put the Bengals in as the final wild card spot. And then and the reason, like, I can't take anyone, like I can't right now take out the Chargers with how good they're playing. I can't take out the Ravens or the Steelers, I feel like. So so the Texans kind of have to be the odd man out there. And I do like the Bengals to kind of put together a little bit of a run here. And I don't know if those 2 teams play each other or not throughout the rest of the season, but I have faith in Joe Burrow, and I saw enough of an improvement early on in that Ravens game against the Ravens offense, or by that Bengals defense, to have some faith in the Bengals going forward. They do have a game against the Chargers and 2 games against the Steelers left, but they also have the Cowboys, Titans, Broncos, and Browns. So I'm going to put the Bengals in there.
So that's one that you've put in. You've got to put in a second one. And this is where I'm having the harder time. Unless you're going Miami, I'm like,
I have the Colts because they'll win the AFC South. Yes.
Colts. Okay. No. Now I'm getting it. I think I would actually agree with you. If I'm taking 2 teams out, it's hard to go against the Texans at this point, except for they've had some rougher weeks. But so have the Colts.
Yeah, and like
I'm only hoping Anthony Richardson is that boost, right?
Yeah, if you look at like the last couple of games though for like Stroud, like it just hasn't been super impressive. 1 interception and 2 touchdowns in the loss to the Lions, then no touchdowns, no interceptions, 191 yards only in the Jets. He had a decent game against Indianapolis, but then he had that 86-yard game against the Packers. So like I don't know if I believe in this Houston offense, even if they get Nico Collins back throughout the rest of the season.
I'm going to have to look at their remaining games. Where do I find this? Okay, so we've got full schedule here. Remaining games. So they're against. Let's see. Detroit, right? So
they have the Chiefs
Dallas,
and Ravens,
Tennessee,
and
Jacksonville, Miami, and then Kansas City, Baltimore, Pittsburgh. Look like the 3 tough ones. Maybe Los Angeles. They have a lot of easy looking people on the board here.
I do like, so I like the Cowboys defense. I like the thing is right now for Houston is if you have a good interior defensive line, you're going to have some success. The Titans have a good, like, you won't necessarily win the game, but you'll have success. And the Titans have both Jeffrey Simmons and T'Vondre Sweat. The Jaguars have former 49ers guy, Arik Armstead. And then the Chiefs, obviously, Chris Jones. So I know it's 2 games against the Titans, but I think one of those games is gettable for Tennessee.
Well, they've got to lose enough that it's not a tie between us because they beat us twice already.
That's true. That's
true. We've got to have a positive number there. So let me go back to our picture here. So we have. Okay, I'm gonna do this right. Chiefs staying in, Bills staying in. I think Steelers staying in, Ravens staying in. Do I believe the Chargers? So who's in the Chargers? Let's see. Got all my windows all messed up here, so it's hard to pull up what I need. But we're getting back to it.
I think with the Chargers, you could say if you're going to bring them out, it's the teams that they've lost to are good teams, and the teams that they've beat are not good teams. But also, Justin Herbert was gone for most of that Steelers loss and was injured in that Chiefs game. So there's also kind of 2 sides to that. But they have the Ravens, they have the Bengals, they have the Falcons, they have the Chiefs. I might be talking myself out of the Chargers and keep the Texans in and just have the Colts as an extra wild card. But I like I believe in Jim Harbaugh, and like that offensive line is really good. They're like running the ball well, and Justin Herbert is really playing some good football right now. So I'm gonna keep the Chargers in, and I'm gonna keep the Texans out.
So what I'm gonna do is Chargers and Texans both have 6 wins. The Chargers only have 3 losses. Texans have 4 because of the bye week thing. I'm going to just to give us a little variation here, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to say the Colts are in and that they take the South, but the Texans stay in a wild card spot. I'm going to say the Chargers are out, and I'm going to say the Broncos are out. So that'd be both out of the AFC West, I guess. And the ones going in are the Colts and the Bengals as well. So very similar. Only difference is Texans completely out, Chargers completely out. That's where we're different right now.
Perfect.
All right, let's move to the NFC side then. In the NFC, we have Lions in first place with an 8-1 record. The Eagles at a 7-2 record, right behind them in the number 2 spot. Falcons at 6-4. And the Cardinals also at 6-4 in their divisions. They're winning. And then we got the Vikings at 7-2 in the first wild card spot. The Commanders at 7-3 in the 6th seed. And then the Packers at 6-3. This one's a little tougher. To pull some out, I think. But
yeah,
we've got to do it because we said we would. What 2 are you pulling out? What 2 are you putting in?
Yeah, I think that the big issue here is there seems to be a gap between like the wild card teams. So I'm picking 2 division leading teams that are going to be falling out of their race. And it's going to be the Atlanta Falcons and the Arizona Cardinals will both drop out of the playoffs. The Falcons will not win the NFC South, and the Cardinals will not win the NFC West.
And so they're completely out of wild card also.
Yep, I'm going to drop them out of the wild card. And so the teams that I'm going to move in are going to be the San Francisco 49ers are going to win the NFC West. Mm-hmm. So they will move in to probably that 3 or 4 spot. And then the team that I have replacing the Falcons is going to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They have a pretty easy schedule the rest of the way. And I love the way that that Baker Mayfield is playing right now. And the Falcons do have the tiebreaker because they swept the Buccaneers. But like the Buccaneers, Giants, Panthers, Raiders, Chargers, Cowboys, Panthers, Saints, the rest of the way. Like a very realistic way to see them going 6-1. And then I do like the Cardinals to a certain extent, especially what we've seen from them these last couple of weeks. But I still don't know about their defense with like all these guys that continue to get injured. The only guy that is really a big name player there is Budda Baker right now. And he's been playing good, but their pass rush outside of these last couple of weeks hasn't been great. And they got their pass rush going against the Bears and the Jets, which most teams have been able to get their pass rushes going against. So I'm going to go with the Buccaneers beating out the Falcons and the 49ers beating out the Cardinals.
This one is much tougher for me, just because now, first of all, one is easy. I do think the Cardinals will end up not winning their division. I think the 49ers are going to do that. So I think 49ers are on my team in. Do I think the Cardinals go all the way out? Well, since I have to take somebody out, yes, I do. Because as I look at these teams, I'm like, my goodness. It's going to be tough to see any of these go out. And so I don't know. I still feel like the Falcons are going to take the South. But you're right. I mean, Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers seem to have the most solidly placed team to come in. I just don't know if I see them coming in. And so if I have to pick something that I'm not sure if I just see it or not, I'm going to go crazy. And so what I'm going to do here, for the benefit of our fans and our missing host, so I'm going to say the Packers drop out somehow, and that the Bears with this new offensive coordinator. Okay, I can't do it.
Man,
I can't do it.
Wherever Brandon's at right now, he just got like a little. He felt something in his head, like there was a little like spark that just went off in his head, and he's like, all of a sudden, he doesn't know why, but he's very, very angry all of a sudden.
Just a little nauseous too. He's like,
his head is turning red. He looks like a tomato now, and he has this sudden urge to find the closest computer and get onto the podcast wherever he is.
Right. So what I'm going to do, man, it's tough. It is really tough to do this. But yeah, I think everybody's like looking good here. I would have to agree. I guess if I have to say somebody's going out and somebody's coming in, then it would be the Falcons and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I just can't see the Bears outpacing the Packers. I don't see the Commanders going out. I don't see the Vikings going out.
I will say the argument for the Bears would be they have 2 games against the Packers, so they can kind of like flip the script if they win both of those games, and they can climb back, just get themselves even in those 2 games alone. But it would be like the remaining games after that.
If they did,
and
those
also
two,
the Packers have won the last 10 games against Chicago.
Yeah, you're right. If they win both of those remaining games, then they would have the tiebreaker, and it would just be the remaining the other teams.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really wanted to. I didn't want to.
Do it.
I didn't want to turn my back on my new home state, but I don't know. I would have to see a lot from the Bears. Like it's hard to put faith in them after a 9-point performance against the Cardinals and then a 3-point performance against the Patriots. I have a hard time putting faith in them to be able to get past the Packers.
I think we're going to have to be in agreement on this one. I think the Cardinals are going out and the 49ers take their place. I think the Falcons then would be the next one. Although I'm just going to make it clear, if it weren't this exercise, I think the Falcons are going to stay in. So yeah. I guess what I'm saying is I think with the switch of the Cardinals and the 49ers, I think the right now playoff picture looks pretty close to what it's going to be.
Yeah.
I think it could end up being the Commanders winning the division instead of the Eagles. I think that was really close. And then, who knows what's going on in the NFC North, but I do think the Lions have enough of a lead and the way they're playing that they're probably going to win that. So it just comes down to which wild card spot.
Well, at least Brandon's, now his, blood pressure is going down and he's starting to feel that weight kind of lift off of him and the redness is starting to drain from his face and he's getting back to a more natural color as he hears all of this in the ether.
So the only place I could force myself to be brave enough to have a difference from you was I put the Chargers out and we both put the Chargers and Broncos out, but I left the Texans in with the Bengals and you put Bengals and who?
We both put the Bengals and Colts in, and then I took the Texans out, whereas you took the
Chargers
out.
So that's the only difference. We'll see when we get to the end how we did.
I'm making an audible. I'm taking the Packers out, and I'm putting the Bears in.
Whoa!
Sorry, Brandon. You're the anger's coming back to you right now. I'm gonna do Caleb. I have to. So here we go.
Let's justify it. Go.
The Cardinals are going to stay in. The Falcons are still going to drop out. And as we talked about, the Bears are going to win this week. Caleb Williams is going to make his case for the Rookie of the Year as he plays out of his mind throughout the rest of the season with the new offense. And the Packers will slowly start to fall like the leaves in autumn to the ground. And Jordan Love will continue to throw interceptions and it will he can't defend it. Brandon can't defend himself right now, but yeah, the ownership stock price will go down, so maybe he doesn't have to pay as much to keep his share of the ownership after this epic collapse for the Green Bay Packers.
So let me get this straight. What you're taking the Packers out and putting the Bears in that wild card spot. You're taking the Falcons out and putting Tampa Bay in up there. So you're leaving the Cardinals.
I'm leaving the Cardinals. Cardinals still have the
49ers
wild
are
card
out.
team. The 49ers will still win the division, but the Cardinals will stay in the playoffs. So the Packers go out and the Falcons go out and the 49ers and Bears go in.
So what I'm not understanding is how that works, because I guess 49ers take the Cardinals place. Cardinals move down to the Packers place. Where did the Bears go?
The Bears move into the Cardinals end up taking
a wild card. Right now they're the division winners, but if 49ers take their place, they drop down to where the Packers were and there's no wild card spots left. It's just a division winner spot.
Hold on. How does this? Okay. So then let's see. Let me look at this here.
I think you have to take the Cardinals out all the way to do this.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Oh wait, no, because the Falcons, they lose their they fall into that wild card spot when the Buccaneers take control of the division. So the Cardinals, even though they're both division leaders right now, the Cardinals take that Falcons wild card spot, and then the Bears take that doesn't exist right now because they're in the top of the division, and the Bears take that Packers wild card spot.
But no. Let's see. The Packers have a wild card spot. There is not another wild card spot for the Falcons to fall into.
Hold on. So I would have the Lions, the Eagles, the Buccaneers, the 49ers. Oh, yeah. No.
Because of the way the divisions work out. You can't have that cake and eat it too.
All right. The Cardinals are also out.
So the Cardinals completely out, Packers out, and the 49ers in, and then I'm sorry. Wait, who did you? Okay. The Cardinals and Falcons are both out.
I guess I have
Tampa
3
Bay
teams
is in.
out now. I'm just adding on to the I'm adding the
You're taking
Bears
3
and
out.
Packers. That's the audible. Is there's going to be an extra team.
A third team out and the third team in. Okay, I got you. That was more confusing than it felt like it should have been for some reason. Oh, all right. Well, I like that. See, what you're doing here is you're being brave. It's something that I wanted to do, and I couldn't bring myself to do it just because looking at the schedule and like seeing what has happened so far. But that's what this segment is all about: giving hope to those without hope, taking hope away from those who were hanging on.
Yeah,
and that's Bears and Packers right there.
Yeah. Sorry, Brandon.
So we've got this all down. At the end of the year, we can kind of see, did that happen? Because if that in fact happens, what you just said, that will be crazy. If the Packers go out and the Bears go in, and then of course Cardinals and Falcons go out and Tampa Bay and 49ers go in, that's not as crazy. But
yeah, no, those ones are much more feasible, and it'll be tough for the Texans to drop out of the race, but I believe in Anthony Richardson.
I love, by the way, that I'm the Colts fan, and you have such a strong, steadfast belief in Anthony Richardson and the Colts. That makes me very happy, because sometimes maybe I'm too close to it. I start to doubt all of that. As a fan, I want it, but I start to doubt it. So
I really hold on to my pre-draft takes, maybe to the point of a fault. And I really wanted Anthony. I thought he was the best quarterback in the class. So like I'm holding on to that, and like holding on, because if I'm wrong, then it's like, oh, you don't really actually know anything about football, and then lose some sort of that credibility. And that's also why I need Bo Nix to not have success, right? Because the pre-draft take was that he would not have success. So it needs to match, or else that confidence like I become the unconfident one instead of Anthony Richardson, and then start questioning all of my football beliefs.
But here's the thing: your pre-draft take was probably that he would end up being the better one, but that he would need some development time. So that could still be true even if he doesn't do it this year.
Yes,
he's really still in his quote first year of NFL action. So I do think he has the skills, and if he could get this mindset, he could surpass. But I wouldn't be against it happening this year. Truth is, he got hurt last year. He wasn't even in. I was like, it wasn't. Everybody is like, oh, the Texans won the divisions, but they all forget that all came down to that 4th and 2 throw to Goodson that he dropped. That could have been the difference, where the Colts go down, score, and then their division winners and the Texans are completely out. Or would they have? Yeah, they would have been completely out.
Yep.
So Jaguars last year, were they a wild card team?
They didn't make the playoffs. No, they were 6-3, and they I think.
So the Colts and the Jags were out?
Yep. And the Texans were the only team to make it.
And before that last game, Colts versus Texans, the Jags were in first place. They were the division winners until somebody won that game, and they lost. If they would have won, they would have kept their division, and one of us would have been a wild card. But as it turned out, us and the Jags went out. So
they went 9-8 last year. So they lost 4 of their. They were actually 8-3 at one point, and they lost 4 of their last 5 games.
It was bad.
Yep.
All right. Well, that's the 4 in 5 out, or 5 in 5 out that we're going with here for this year. Hey, let's look real quickly at the games coming up in week 11. Let's talk about what's going to be good. I think we're going to start with a good one tonight. Washington versus Philadelphia. As I said, I think they're the two fighting for that division, and they are neck and neck right now. And the ones that at least the one I'm just thinking of, the Washington loss this last week. It was very close to not being a loss, and could have gone the other way. And so I think these two teams, it's going to be a good game tonight to watch and get a real kind of barometer on who is the leader in this division. So that'll be a good one. What's your good one of the week?
And I know decide at least through 11 weeks who is in fact. Oops, sorry. Yeah,
No.
so it'll decide the top spot. Whoever wins this game will be at the top, and I think they play another time. I think another one to look out for is going to be that Steelers Ravens game too, because that's going to be kind of a similar feel to it with the AFC North top at the line.
Yeah, Steelers Ravens is going to be awesome. And then we mentioned the last one already, KC Buffalo. I think that's going to be a good game because Josh Allen, even though a lot of people are getting a lot of talk, Josh Allen has been playing really well this year. Everybody's talking about like Lamar for MVP, but Josh Allen has been playing better, I think, than Lamar. And so that'll be a fun game to watch. I would love to see Kansas City get its first loss. And then that's going to set up a huge grudge match, that sort of thing. So.
And that's like traditionally been like these last couple of years. What happens between these two teams is the Bills win in the regular season, and then the Chiefs come in and get their revenge in the postseason. So yeah, with 13 seconds left. Oh man, that was a fun night to be a football fan. That wasn't from Buffalo, and the Bills just find so many ways. Like they had the Tyler Bass do his best Scott Norwood impression last year in the playoffs to them. So it'll be fun. I think the Bills win that game.
They've had the overtime. We didn't get to touch the ball loss for the Bills. Yep.
They're all classics. And then even the regular season loss for the Chiefs last year was that there was that lateral that was called back. There was Travis Kelce threw it back to Kadarius Toney, who ended up being offsides. So like every single time like these two teams meet up against one another, there's some sort of like iconic moment in NFL history that seems to happen, whether it's in the regular season or not. It just seems to be that's what we're going to be in for at 3:25 on Sunday.
And then you're low key. I'm interested in this game because I'm going to say Indy versus Jets. That's not like a marquee game at all, but I just want to see how Anthony Richardson responds with the team.
Yeah, and I'm going to go with the Broncos versus Falcons. Both of these teams can help or hurt themselves in the playoff race with this game. Like they're both kind of teetering on the edge. I know Falcons technically have a 3-game lead, but we talked about the easy schedule for the Buccaneers the rest of the way. So the Falcons still have to play pretty good ball in order to clinch that division. And there's the outside chance. Right now, Kirk Cousins is listed as questionable. We might get to see Michael Penix make his first start if Kirk Cousins does end up being injured. And then it's Washington versus Oregon, part 3. Those two teams, Bo Nix and Michael Penix, went head-to-head twice last year in the college football world, once in the regular season and once for the Pac-12 championship. So we could see them go head-to-head once again here now with a chance to really improve their playoff position or hurt their playoff position.
And I'm really hoping Atlanta wins that one because I predicted that Atlanta would stay in and Broncos would go out. That would work. So, and I'm sure you wouldn't vote against it right now.
No, I go Falcons.
All right. So that's our marquee and our kind of low key interest game. I don't know if we need to do a manure because there's just always a ton of manure games. I guess if I had to pick one that just looks really bad, I don't do that. Like when you have a really good team against a really bad team, I try to pick the two bad teams, and it's hard to vote against Las Vegas, Miami right now. I know you've kind of been holding on hope for Miami, but Cleveland, New Orleans, I don't know.
Yeah, I will stick with the color of manure, the Browns and the Saints. That one not being super great, although Jameis Winston gets to go back to New Orleans. So I think his last time there, he handed the ball off to Jamal Williams when they were not to score a touchdown because Williams hadn't scored a touchdown all year, and Dennis Allen got angry at him for that because they were just supposed to be kneeling out the clock to end the game. So that was Jameis Winston's last time in New Orleans, or at least one of his last times, and now he gets to return just a couple weeks after Allen was fired.
Yeah. Okay.
But that game I don't expect to be very good.
Still probably the manure game. So
yeah,
that one or Las Vegas, Miami. We'll have to see. All right. Well, I think, hey, that's going to do it for us here today on the Football Fandemic. Thanks for joining us. Next week, we're going to come back and see how everything's progressing, how it's going, and we'll have Brandon back too, so he can talk about that Bears-Packers thing. See you guys next time.